There was one problem. One detail that threatened to collapse the entire theory. The man on Nancy Guthrie's porch, the masked figure captured on her doorbell camera in the early hours of February 1, 2026, was described by the FBI as approximately 5 feet 9 to 5 feet 10 inches tall with an average build. Investigators and journalists who examined publicly available photographs of Tommaso Cioni, Nancy's son-in-law and the last known person to have seen her alive, reached a consistent conclusion. He appears notably taller than that range. If the man on the porch was not Cioni, then either the theory connecting him to Nancy's disappearance was wrong, or the man on the porch was someone else. Someone Cioni sent. Someone who knew the house, knew the family, knew the camera system, and had the background to do what needed to be done in the middle of the night without hesitation. In our previous video on this case, we laid out the documented connections surrounding Cioni, the 4-hour window, the power of attorney signed 8 months before his mother-in-law vanished, the FBI returning to the family home 5 separate times. We raised the question of whether this crime required 2 people. We left that question open deliberately. We were still pulling records. We have now been through those records. And there is a name that keeps appearing next to Tommaso Cioni's. A name connected to felony convictions. A name attached to a face that fits the FBI's physical description. A name that has been in Cioni's life for 19 years. This is Case Analysis Bureau. This is the second video in our Nancy Guthrie case analysis series. And what I am about to walk you through is not speculation designed for shock value. It is a careful examination of publicly available records, documented connections, forensic evidence, and the one detail about this crime that tells us, with near certainty, that the man on that porch did not act alone. Subscribe to Case Analysis Bureau right now and turn on notifications. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 30 days and this case is at a critical juncture. We will cover every significant development the moment it is confirmed. Before we go further, drop a comment and tell us, do you believe one person committed this crime or 2? Let us know below. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Before we go a single step further into analysis, I want to establish who this case is actually about. Nancy Ellen Guthrie was born on January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She is 84 years old. She has lived in the Tucson area for more than 5 decades, having moved there with her family in the early 1970s. She raised 3 children, Savannah, Annie, and Cameron, after her husband Charles died in 1988 during a mining exploration trip in Mexico, when Savannah was just 6 years old. Her daughter Savannah is one of the most recognizable journalists in America, the co-anchor of NBC's Today program. But Nancy Guthrie did not disappear because of who her daughter is. She was taken from her own home, in her own neighborhood, where she had lived since 1985. She was taken from the house where she raised her family. She was 84 years old with a pacemaker and limited mobility. She needs daily medication to survive. Every piece of analysis in this video exists in service of one goal: understanding what happened to Nancy Guthrie and who is responsible for taking her. That is the only reason any name gets discussed here. As of today, March 3, 2026, day 30, Nancy Guthrie has not been found. Her whereabouts are unknown. Her condition is unknown. Her family is offering $1 million for information leading to her recovery. The FBI is offering an additional $202,500. Combined, the reward stands at $1.2 million. Somewhere in Arizona, someone knows where she is. This video exists because that person needs to come forward. Let me take you through why investigators, and the forensic evidence itself, point toward more than one person being involved in Nancy's disappearance. The 2 DNA profiles. The Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI have confirmed that 2 separate DNA profiles have been recovered in connection with this case. The first was extracted from a nitrile glove found approximately 2 miles from Nancy's home in a field near the side of the road. The FBI stated that this glove appears to visually match the gloves worn by the suspect in the doorbell camera footage. The DNA from this glove belongs to an unknown male and does not match Nancy, does not match any family member, and does not match anyone in the FBI's National Criminal Database. The second DNA profile comes from biological evidence recovered inside Nancy's home. These two profiles do not match each other. They belong to two different people. This is not a theory. This is biological evidence, confirmed by law enforcement, that two separate individuals contributed genetic material to this crime scene. Former FBI hostage negotiator Chip Massey stated that an accomplice would significantly change the case, adding that a kidnapper would need help to control a hostage, maintain her health, and manage the logistics of keeping someone hidden for any extended period. The doorbell camera footage, 2 appearances. CNN confirmed through a source familiar with the investigation that the photographs and video of the masked suspect on Nancy's doorstep were taken on 2 different nights, not just on February the 1st when she disappeared. In one image the suspect is carrying a backpack and a holster. In another he appears in similar clothing but without those items. The Pima County Sheriff's Department stated that there are no date or time stamps on the images, but the source confirmed the visits occurred on separate nights. If that is accurate, then someone approached Nancy's home on at least 2 separate occasions, once in what appears to be a reconnaissance visit and once to commit the abduction. The logistics of the crime itself. Think carefully about what this crime required. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old with limited mobility. She cannot be carried or rushed. Moving her from her bedroom, through her home, down her driveway, and into a waiting vehicle, without triggering a neighbor response, without setting off additional cameras, without leaving visible evidence of a struggle, takes time. And during that time, someone needs to be watching. The person inside the home managing Nancy cannot simultaneously be the person outside monitoring the street, watching the neighbor's lights, timing the gap between camera coverage and the nearest occupied house. That requires 2 people. The operative inside. The lookout outside. The gate. Nancy's home had a front security gate in addition to the main door, common in Tucson desert properties. In the doorbell footage, the suspect approaches the front door without any visible evidence of forcing the outer gate. No prying. No tool use. He appears to walk through as though the path had been cleared for him. There are 2 explanations. Either Nancy did not secure the outer gate that night, possible for an 84-year-old woman living alone in a quiet neighborhood she had trusted for 40 years. Or someone left it accessible deliberately. Someone who had been at the house earlier that evening. Someone who knew the gate existed and understood that it needed to be open for the plan to work. The man on the porch did not behave like someone overcoming barriers. He behaved like someone walking a path that had been cleared for him. In our previous analysis, we introduced the framework of 2 roles in this crime. We called them the architect and the operative. The architect is the person who planned the crime. They know the house. They know the camera system. They know the victim's routine. They know the family's financial situation. They know which door might be left unlocked. They have the motive, and they have the knowledge. But they do not fit the physical description of the man on the porch. They cannot be the one who walks up to that doorbell camera. The operative is the person who physically executed the plan. They are the one on the porch. The one in the mask. The one who enters the house and does the work. They may not know everything about why this crime is happening. They know their role. They have the criminal experience to carry it out. And they trust the person who recruited them with their freedom and their future. If this framework is correct, and the 2 DNA profiles confirm that at minimum 2 people were present, then the question the investigation must answer is not just who was on that porch. It is who recruited him. Who gave him the address. Who told him which door would be open. who had 19 years of relationship to draw on when it came time to ask someone to do something that cannot be undone. If you are still with me, drop a comment right now with "I'm still here." Let's see who is following every detail of this analysis. Hit that like button. This case needs to stay in front of as many people as possible. Now let's talk about the name the public records keep pointing toward, and exactly what those records show. The name that public records, property filings, and documented social connections keep returning to in this investigation is Dominic Aaron Lee Evans. Before we go through what the records show, let me be absolutely precise about what this video is and is not. No law enforcement agency has named Dominic Evans as a suspect. The FBI has not publicly connected him to this investigation. The Pima County Sheriff has not mentioned his name. He has not been detained, questioned publicly, or connected to any law enforcement action in this case. Everything that follows is drawn from publicly available court records, open-source reporting, and documented connections that are a matter of public record. This channel presents evidence for examination. We do not issue verdicts. How Evans and Cioni know each other. In April of 2007, 3 men in Tucson, Arizona found each other through classified advertisements. Evans, a drummer, met guitarist Walter Goncalves Jr. through a Craigslist posting. Tommaso Cioni, who had moved to the United States from Tuscany, Italy the previous year, responded to an advertisement in the Tucson Weekly. They formed a band. They called it Early Black, an indie post-punk, shoegaze, and grunge outfit that played small venues across Arizona, recorded a debut album at Loveland Studios in Tucson, and built a modest local following. The band released their first record in 2010 to positive reviews in the Tucson Weekly. They played shows in Tucson, Phoenix, and Flagstaff. The name of that debut album was Life, Love, Love, Murder. We are going to be precise about what that title means and what it does not mean. Album titles with dark or provocative language are common across countless musical genres. That title, in isolation, means nothing. But it is context. And in a case where every connection around one individual is being scrutinized, context matters. What matters far more than the album title is what the band represents, a documented relationship between Tommaso Cioni and Dominic Evans that began in 2007 and has now spanned 19 years. 19 years is not a casual acquaintance. It is not a business contact or a former colleague. 19 years is the kind of relationship in which two people know each other's financial situations, their capabilities, their habits, their weaknesses, and their willingness to cross certain lines. Cioni married Nancy Guthrie in September of 2006, 1 year before Early Black was formed. That means for the entire duration of his relationship with Evans, Cioni has been a member of the Guthrie family. Every conversation between them over those 19 years happened in the context of Cioni's marriage to Nancy's daughter. Evans would have known about the family. He would have known about the house in the Catalina foothills. Not because he was conducting surveillance, but because that is what happens when you spend nearly 2 decades as someone's close friend. The criminal record. Dominic Aaron Lee Evans has a criminal record in Pima County, Arizona. The charges documented in publicly available court records include felony burglary, robbery, theft, embezzlement, and driving under the influence. This information was first brought to public attention by an investigative account on the platform formerly known as Twitter, and subsequently reported by multiple media outlets. Each charge in that list matters individually in the context of this case. Burglary in Arizona is defined as entering or remaining unlawfully in a structure with the intent to commit a felony or theft. The legal definition maps precisely onto what happened at Nancy's house on the night of February the 1st. Someone entered her home unlawfully with the intent to commit a crime. Robbery differs from theft because it involves force or the threat of force directly against another person. Whoever entered Nancy's home that night did not simply take a possession. They took an 84-year-old woman. That requires a specific psychological threshold, the willingness to physically confront and overpower another human being. Most people never cross that threshold. Someone with a robbery conviction already has. Embezzlement requires a position of trust. You cannot embezzle from someone who does not trust you with their resources. That pattern, exploiting a position of trust for financial gain, is relevant in an investigation where the financial relationship between a victim and her son-in-law is already under scrutiny. And the driving under the influence charge, while appearing the least significant on that list, tells us something about risk tolerance. A person who drives impaired has demonstrated a willingness to put others at risk for personal convenience. They have shown that consequences do not reliably override impulse. Every crime teaches the person who commits it something they carry forward. Burglary teaches you how to move through a space that does not belong to you without alerting the people inside. How locks work. How doors work. How to manage noise and footsteps in the dark. Robbery teaches you how to confront another person and maintain control through intimidation or force. Those are not theoretical skills. They are practiced skills. And they do not fade. The physical description. The FBI described the suspect visible in Nancy's doorbell camera footage as a male, approximately 5 feet 9 to 5 feet 10 with an average build, facial hair visible through the mask in the form of a mustache or goatee, and carrying a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack backpack. He was wearing what appeared to be a belly band holster for a handgun, worn incorrectly over a thick jacket. Former FBI Supervisory Special Agent and criminal profiler Jim Clementi told Fox News Digital that he observed what appears to be a marking, possibly a tattoo, visible on the suspect's right wrist in the surveillance footage. Clementi stated that if confirmed, it could help investigators rule in and rule out potential suspects. Jim Clementi is not a social media speculator. He spent his career at the FBI analyzing exactly this kind of evidence. When he identifies a potential identifying mark, the FBI is already cross-referencing it. Online investigators, examining early blacks archived music videos and performance footage, identified what appears to be a tattoo on Evans's right wrist consistent in location with the marking Clementi identified. I am not going to present a side-by-side photograph and call it conclusive. Comparing low-resolution doorbell camera footage distorted by infrared lighting to casual photographs taken in completely different conditions is not reliable identification. The FBI has the original footage and the forensic tools to make that comparison properly. What I can state is this: the physical parameters released by the FBI do not exclude Dominic Evans. The height range is consistent. The average build description is consistent. The facial hair is consistent. And the potential wrist marking, if the FBI confirms it, narrows the field of possible suspects significantly. The geography. Public records associate Evans with addresses in the broader Tucson and Marana area, with past addresses in other parts of southern Arizona. He was born on February 18, 1978, making him 47 years old. He has lived in the southern Arizona region for most of his adult life. Marana is a community located northwest of Tucson within easy driving distance of the Catalina Foothills neighborhood where Nancy lived. The property where Nancy lived, the home where Cioni and Annie live approximately 4 miles away, and Evans's documented area of residence form a tight geographic triangle in the northern Tucson suburbs. Some reports have also linked Evans to a property in Rio Rico, a rural community approximately 60 miles south of Tucson, about 16 miles north of the Mexican border near Nogales. Law enforcement conducted a search in Rio Rico on the evening of February 10 after detaining a person of interest during a traffic stop in that area. That individual, identified later as a man named Carlos, was released without charge and confirmed to have no connection to the case. But the geographic detail remains. Rio Rico is remote, sparsely populated. The kind of location where someone or something could be kept without attracting attention. The route from the Catalina foothills to Rio Rico follows Interstate 19 South, a straight drive through the desert. At 2 in the morning with no traffic, it takes approximately 50 minutes. If someone left Nancy's neighborhood at approximately 2:30 in the morning on February 1, they could be in Rio Rico by 3:20. Cell tower data along that entire route would tell investigators exactly where every phone traveled. Which is why anyone who drove that route without leaving their phone at home has already provided the FBI with a timeline they cannot retract. In our previous analysis, we identified January the 23rd, 2026 as a significant date, a night when surveillance footage from a neighboring property captured what appeared to be a figure walking backwards away from Nancy's home, approximately 9 days before the abduction. We described this as a possible rehearsal. The accomplice framework makes this detail even more significant. If two people were involved in this crime, then the question for investigators is not just whether one phone appeared at that rehearsal location on January the 23rd and again at the crime scene on February the 1st. The question is whether two phones did. Here is the critical vulnerability in any two-person conspiracy involving a rehearsal night. On February the 1st, the people involved knew the crime was coming. They could prepare. They could leave their phones at home. Borrow vehicles. Create digital gaps. But on January the 23rd, if that was a reconnaissance visit, it was supposed to be invisible. Nobody was supposed to know about it. The Ring camera on the neighboring property was not supposed to capture anything. The figure walking backwards was not supposed to be noticed. Which means the people present that night almost certainly did not take precautions. Their phones were in their pockets. They drove their own cars. They connected to cell towers along the route. All of that data is sitting in the records of every telecommunications company operating towers in the northern Tucson area. If the FBI runs a tower dump for January the 23rd and overlays it with cell data from February the 1st, and two phones appear in both data sets registered to two individuals who know each other and live in the same area, the case does not just narrow. It closes. Throughout this investigation, multiple ransom-style communications have been sent to media outlets. TMZ received an initial note on February the 1st and 2nd demanding millions of dollars in Bitcoin. A second note followed, then a third, and then a fourth. The fourth communication, received on February the 16th, stated in part that the sender knows what they saw south of the border, that they were told to stay silent, and that they know who the main individual is. Investigative journalist and former FBI profiler Jim Clemente and ransom communications expert David Levon both analyzed these messages. Levon noted that the sender indicated they would not collect an initial $50,000 payment until after an arrest was made, suggesting they were genuinely expecting an arrest to occur. He interpreted the language as consistent with someone who is close to the flame, their phrase, and worried about being implicated themselves. Pay careful attention to the phrase "the main individual." Not the kidnapper. Not the suspect. Not the person who took her. The main individual. That is organizational language. It implies a hierarchy. It implies the sender understands that more than one person was involved and that one of them is primary, the one who planned it, while the others are secondary. If you are describing a lone stranger who broke into a house, you do not say the main individual. You say the kidnapper. The fact that this phrase appears in what appears to be a communication from someone close to the conspiracy suggests the sender understands its layered structure from the inside. There is one more pattern worth examining carefully. In the 30 days since Nancy Guthrie disappeared, two men connected to this case by public record and documented relationship have said nothing publicly. NewsNation senior national correspondent Brian Anton reported in early February that Tommaso Cioni had not been seen publicly in almost a week, despite the fact that his mother-in-law was missing. The FBI was conducting active searches in his neighborhood, and news cameras were pointed at his street around the clock. Anton described him as very recognizable, with his distinctive beard, and noted his absence from any public view. Lawyers advising someone in Cioni's position would tell them exactly this: stop being visible. Every photograph is a comparison. Every public appearance generates analysis. Disappear from view and let the media have nothing new to work with. And Dominic Evans has made no public statement about this case. None. He has not been interviewed by any media outlet. He has not posted publicly about Nancy's disappearance. He has not issued a denial. He has not expressed concern for the woman who has been the subject of the most covered kidnapping investigation in the country for 30 consecutive days. In the age where every person with a phone can make a statement to the world in 30 seconds, his silence is complete. Silence from one person can mean many things. Silence from two people who have known each other for 19 years, who are both connected to the victim's family, and who are both being discussed publicly in the context of a kidnapping investigation. That silence is harder to dismiss as coincidence. This analysis would not be complete without the counter-arguments. And I want to give them the full weight they deserve. The Guthrie family, including Annie Guthrie and her husband Tommaso Cioni, have been publicly cleared as suspects by Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos. He stated plainly that to suggest otherwise was not only wrong but cruel. Cleared is the sheriff's word. It is a significant word from the lead investigator. It means that at the current stage of the investigation, the evidence does not support treating any family member as a suspect. The important clarification here is that cleared is an investigative status, not a legal verdict. It means the available evidence does not currently support charges. It does not mean new evidence cannot change that status. And in high-profile cases, publicly clearing family members can serve an investigative purpose, reducing the media pressure on the investigation and potentially causing a guilty party to lower their guard. Sheriff Nanos knows this. The people covering this case know this. And anyone watching this analysis should weigh that nuance. Regarding Dominic Evans specifically, there is a real and legitimate possibility that he is completely uninvolved. His criminal record is from prior years. His physical characteristics are consistent with the FBI's description, but so are thousands of other men in the Tucson area. His friendship with Cioni is just that, a friendship, until evidence says otherwise. And the real kidnapper may be someone whose name has not yet surfaced publicly, someone sitting in a genealogy database waiting to be matched by the same investigative technique that identified the Golden State Killer. One more correction that must be stated clearly. Several channels covering this case reported that the February 13 SWAT raid in Tucson targeted Dominic Evans. That is factually wrong. The individuals detained in that operation were identified as Luke Daly, age 37, and his 77-year-old mother. Daly's lawyer confirmed his client has no link to Nancy Guthrie. The SWAT raid was not an Evans story. Presenting it as one is irresponsible and it undermines the credibility of everyone covering this investigation. Here is where every thread in this analysis converges. Investigators are pursuing investigative genetic genealogy on the DNA evidence recovered from this case, the same technique used to identify the Golden State Killer after decades of failure, and the same technique used in the Brian Kohberger investigation. Even if the suspect has never submitted their own DNA to a commercial service, a family member might have. By building family trees from partial matches in publicly available databases, investigators can narrow the search to a specific individual through their relatives. This process takes time. But it has solved cases that were considered unsolvable for decades. And here is what makes the two DNA profiles finding so significant for whoever committed this crime. One profile would give investigators one family tree to build. Two profiles means two family trees. Two sets of relatives who might have used ancestry services. The odds that neither person has a single family member in any genealogy database drops exponentially with every branch. One profile is hard to run from. Two profiles is a mathematical near certainty that at least one of them will eventually connect to a name. The reward now stands at $1.2 million. $1 million from the Guthrie family, which Savannah confirmed can be paid in cash. $202,500 from the FBI. That number tests loyalty. It tests friendships. It tests the bond between people who have known each other long enough to believe that bond is stronger than anything else. The history of criminal cases tells us that it rarely is. Money and a DNA match arriving at the same time is a combination that makes silence feel very expensive. The DNA will speak. The cell tower data will speak. The genealogy databases will speak. And when they do, every connection laid out in this analysis will either stand as a framework that held, or collapse as a coincidence. Either outcome matters. Both outcomes bring us closer to Nancy. I want to close this analysis the way Case Analysis Bureau always closes, with the person at the center of this story. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She was born on January the 27th, 1942. She raised 3 children after her husband died young. She has lived in the same Tucson neighborhood for 40 years. She is described by everyone who knows her as sharp as a tack. Her daughter Savannah stepped away from covering the Winter Olympics, one of the biggest broadcasts of her career, to search for her mother. Her family has offered $1 million of their own money. Her neighbors have left yellow flowers outside her home for 30 days. She needs daily medication to survive. Her pacemaker disconnected from the app on her phone in the early hours of February the 1st. She is somewhere in the world right now, and someone knows exactly where. Savannah Guthrie addressed the person or persons responsible directly in a video posted to her Instagram account. She said, "It is never too late to do the right thing." Nancy Guthrie. 84 years old. Tucson, Arizona. Taken from her home on February the 1st, 2026. 30 days missing. Still out there. Still waiting to come home. Before you go, leave your most important question about this case in the comments below. What detail do you think investigators should be focusing on right now? Where do you think the DNA leads? This community has been ahead of the coverage from the beginning, and we want to hear what you see. Subscribe to Case Analysis Bureau and turn on your notifications. The moment the DNA results are made public, the moment a suspect is named, we will be here with the full analysis. If you have any information about Nancy Guthrie's whereabouts, contact the FBI tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI or visit tips.fbi.gov. The reward is $1.2 million. Share this video right now. It may be the one that reaches the person who knows something.